A black man just wanted breakfast at a diner until two cops dragged him out and beat him. What they didn't know: his son isn't just anyone, he's the chief of White House security, and when he shows up, the entire town watches justice flip the script. The small-town diner buzzed with its usual morning chatter. The smell of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee filled the air as regulars shuffled in, nodding to the familiar faces. Marcus Reed, a tall black man in his late 50s, walked in quietly, adjusting the collar of his worn jacket. He had just finished a long shift at the auto shop and wanted nothing more than a hot meal before heading home. He chose a booth by the window, set his cap on the seat beside him, and smiled politely at Linda Parker, the waitress who came over with her notepad ready. "The usual, Mr. Reed?" she asked warmly. Marcus chuckled. "You know me too well, Linda. Coffee, eggs over easy, and maybe throw in a stack of pancakes. I've earned it today." Linda scribbled down the order and walked away. Marcus leaned back, enjoying a rare moment of peace, but across the diner, two uniformed officers had their eyes on him. Officer Cole Simmons, broad-shouldered with a permanent scowl, nudged his partner, Officer Jake Turner. "You see him?" Simmons muttered. "Looks out of place. What's he doing here this early?" Turner frowned but said nothing. Simmons stood up, his boots heavy on the tile floor, and approached Marcus's booth. "Hey, you!" Simmons barked. "What are you doing here?" Marcus blinked, surprised. "Eating breakfast. Same as you." But Simmons wasn't looking for answers. He was looking for trouble. He sneered, glancing at Marcus's cap and worn jacket. "Funny. You don't look like you belong here. Show me some ID." The diner quieted. Every eye turned to the booth by the window. Marcus sighed, trying to keep calm. He had dealt with this kind of thing before, but something about Simmons's tone told him this wasn't going to be just another uncomfortable encounter. He didn't know it yet, but this morning would change everything. Marcus pulled his wallet from his back pocket, sliding his driver's license across the table with steady hands. He didn't raise his voice, didn't argue. He knew better. "Here. Everything's in order," he said. Officer Simmons snatched the card without a word, scanning it like he expected to find something wrong. Turner stood just behind him, arms crossed, his eyes darting nervously around the diner. Linda Parker, the waitress, hovered near the counter, biting her lip. She had seen these officers throw their weight around before, but something about today felt different, meaner. Simmons tossed the license back onto the table. "Marcus Reed," he said mockingly, dragging out the syllables. "What are you really doing here? Places like this, not exactly your scene, are they?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "This is my town, officer. Been eating here for years, you can ask anyone." But Simmons wasn't listening. His smirk widened, feeding off the uncomfortable silence in the room. "Stand up," he ordered. Marcus hesitated. "Why? Because I said so? Or are you refusing a lawful order?" Simmons' voice rose, echoing against the walls of the diner. Turner shifted uneasily but didn't step in. The room grew tense. A father with his young daughter looked away, pretending not to notice. A couple of truckers at the counter exchanged uneasy glances. Marcus slowly stood, holding his palms open. "Look, I don't want any trouble. I just came for breakfast." But trouble was exactly what Simmons wanted. Without warning, he shoved Marcus hard against the booth, knocking the cap to the floor. The crowd gasped. Linda nearly dropped the coffee pot she was holding. "Resisting, huh?" Simmons growled, grabbing Marcus by the arm. Marcus winced in pain but kept his composure. He had no idea that his every move was being recorded. 3 customers had already pulled out their phones, and one of those videos would soon make its way to someone who would change the game entirely: Ethan Reed. Marcus's back slammed against the cold tile floor as Simmons forced him down. Turner moved in quickly, pulling out his baton as if the man in front of them was some dangerous criminal instead of a tired father who just wanted pancakes. "Stop resisting," Simmons barked, though Marcus wasn't resisting at all. He had his hands spread, his voice calm. "I'm not resisting. I'm not doing anything." Marcus pleaded, his words drowned by the heavy boots pressing into his ribs. The diner erupted in murmurs. Linda Parker rushed forward, only to be stopped by Turner, shoving her back with a sharp motion of his arm. "Stay out of it, lady," he snapped. "Cole, this is too much," Turner muttered under his breath. But Simmons didn't care. He swung his baton, striking Marcus across the shoulder. A sickening crack echoed through the diner. People gasped, some shouting at the officers to stop. Marcus groaned, clutching his arm, but kept his eyes steady. He wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. Simmons sneered down at him. "Men like you never learn unless it's beaten into you," he hissed. Linda couldn't take it anymore. She screamed, "Enough! You're going to kill him!" Her voice shook, but her courage carried through the silence. Several customers now stood from their booths, phones raised high, recording every second. The flashing red rec dots reflected in Simmons's furious eyes, but he didn't stop. If anything, he struck harder, as if proving a point. Marcus lay battered, his breathing heavy, his heart pounding with equal parts fear and fury. He thought of his son, Ethan, working hundreds of miles away in Washington, dedicated to protecting one of the most powerful offices in the world. If Ethan could see this, he didn't know it yet, but Ethan was about to see everything. Linda Parker's hands trembled as she clutched her phone, the video still rolling. The screen showed everything, the shoves, the baton, Marcus pleading for peace, while Simmons's voice thundered over him. She knew this couldn't stay hidden. Across the diner, a young college student named Daniel uploaded his video straight to social media, tagging news outlets and civil rights pages. Within minutes, the clip began to circulate, picking up views faster than anyone inside the diner could imagine. Simmons, oblivious to the digital storm he had just unleashed, dragged Marcus upright, his grip iron tight on his arm. "You're under arrest," he spat. "For what?" Marcus managed through clenched teeth. "Disorderly conduct, resisting an officer," Simmons said smugly. Turner shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't blind, Marcus had done nothing, but he also wasn't brave enough to contradict Simmons in front of a crowd. Linda's voice cut through the diner. "You're lying, and you know it. We all saw what you did." Her shout earned a wave of agreement from customers. Phones tilted higher, recording every word. For the first time, Simmons looked rattled. His eyes darted around the room, realizing the control he thought he had was slipping. Still, his pride wouldn't let him back down. "Everyone sit down before you're all arrested," he barked. But no one moved. The silence was defiant. Marcus, breathing hard, stared at Simmons with quiet strength. He wasn't broken. He wouldn't give them that. And far away in Washington, Ethan Reed sat at his desk, sifting through security briefings. His phone buzzed. A notification flashed, "Black man beaten by police at diner." Live footage. At first he ignored it. These stories came too often. But then his eyes froze on the paused thumbnail of the video. The face on the screen wasn't just another victim. It was his father. Ethan Reed's hand went cold as the video loaded. His father's face filled the screen, pinned against the diner floor, blood at the corner of his mouth, Simmons's baton raised high. Ethan's breath caught in his chest. For a moment, the world around him, the bustling office, the constant chatter of radios, faded into silence. "No, Dad," he whispered. A junior officer walked past Ethan's desk and froze at the sight of his pale face. "Chief, you okay?" Ethan didn't answer, his jaw locked tight, his fist clenching until his knuckles whitened. He replayed the video, every second burning deeper into his mind. He watched his father stay calm, watched him take hit after hit, and watched the crowd try to intervene. And he saw Simmons, grinning with arrogance, acting like he owned the world. Ethan's training kicked in. His mind shifted from son to strategist. He knew better than anyone how fast these things spread, and how fast departments scrambled to cover them up. He couldn't afford to waste a second. He grabbed his phone and dialed. "Captain Harris," he said sharply when his superior answered. "I need clearance to leave immediately. This is personal. Life or death." Harris's tone hardened. "What's going on, Reed?" Ethan hesitated only long enough to breathe. "It's my father. He's the man in that diner video." A pause. Then Harris's voice dropped. "Go. Take a team if you need. No red tape. Handle it." Ethan hung up and stood, his badge glinting under the office lights. He wasn't just a son anymore. He was a White House security chief, with authority and reach that could crush men like Simmons. And he was going home. Back at the diner, Marcus was shoved into the back of a squad car. Simmons smirked, slamming the door shut. He had no idea the storm already racing toward him. A squad car rattled down the uneven streets, its sirens silent, but its presence heavy. Marcus sat in the back, his wrists cuffed too tightly behind him. The metal dug into his skin, each bump in the road shooting pain through his sore shoulder. He stared out the window, his reflection fractured by streaks of dirt and flashing lights. Simmons drove with one hand on the wheel, the other tapping the steering column. His smug grin lingered. "Bet you thought you could just waltz in and act like you owned the place, huh?" he muttered over his shoulder. Marcus didn't answer. He had learned long ago that silence was sometimes the strongest weapon, but his silence only fueled Simmons's anger. "You people never learn," Simmons spat. "Always playing the victim. Well, not today. Today you'll learn respect." Turner sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. His grip on his baton tightened. Deep inside, guilt churned in his gut, but fear of Simmons and the department's culture kept him silent. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his voice calm but edged with steel. "Respect isn't beaten into a man. It's earned, something you'll never understand." For a moment, Simmons's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed, catching Marcus's in the rearview mirror. "Careful," he hissed. "Mouth off again, and you won't make it to the station in one piece." The cruiser turned sharply, tires squealing as they pulled into the back lot of the police station. The building loomed like a fortress, its concrete walls and barred windows cold under the morning sun. As Simmons dragged Marcus out, reporters and bystanders had already gathered outside the front entrance. Word of the diner beating had spread like wildfire. Cameras flashed, voices shouted. Simmons cursed under his breath. He had wanted a quiet show of power, but now the world was watching. And far away, Ethan Reed's convoy was already racing down the highway, every mile bringing him closer. The roar of engines echoed down the main street as a convoy of black SUVs rolled into town. Windows tinted, tires crunching against the pavement, the vehicles moved with precision that immediately drew the eyes of bystanders. People whispered, some even pulling out their phones again. Something big was happening. Inside the lead vehicle, Ethan Reed sat forward, his sharp suit immaculate, his badge clipped at his belt. His eyes were hard, laser-focused on the station ahead. He had replayed the diner video a dozen times during the ride, every second etching deeper into his mind. Every swing of that baton against his father's body felt like it had struck him too. "Sir, we're 2 minutes out," his driver reported. Ethan nodded. "Good. No delays. Park in front of the station. I want everyone to see this." The convoy came to a stop, and the SUV doors opened in unison. Ethan stepped out, his presence commanding instant attention. The crowd outside the station gasped as cameras swung toward him. Some recognized him immediately. Ethan Reed, chief of White House security. His reputation carried weight, and today that weight was about to fall on the local police. Simmons, standing by the entrance with Marcus still in cuffs, froze. The smug grin he had worn since the diner vanished. Turner's eyes widened. He had seen powerful men before, but the look on Ethan's face was different, cold, unyielding, personal. Ethan's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Release him." "Now," Simmons scoffed, trying to recover his arrogance. "And who the hell do you think you are?" Ethan took one step closer, his badge gleaming in the sunlight. His voice was low, steady, but filled with authority. "I'm the man who protects the President of the United States, and that," he pointed directly at Marcus, "is my father." The crowd erupted. Gasps, shouts, flashes, and Simmons realized, too late, that his world had just crumbled. The crowd outside the police station erupted into a frenzy of questions and shouts. Reporters pushed forward, microphones extended, while citizens shouted for justice. Cameras flashed like lightning, capturing every movement, every expression. Simmons stiffened, his grip still firm on Marcus's arm, but sweat began to bead on his forehead. His authority, once unquestioned in this small town, was slipping fast. "This is none of your business," he barked at Ethan. "He's under arrest." "Step back." Ethan didn't flinch. His posture was steady, his tone sharp as steel. "Under arrest for what? Eating breakfast? Or daring to sit where you thought he didn't belong?" The crowd roared in agreement. A chant began to ripple through them. "Let him go! Let him go!" Turner shifted uneasily beside Simmons. "Cole," he muttered, low enough that only Simmons could hear. "This is bad, real bad." But Simmons doubled down, his pride blinding him. He shoved Marcus forward. resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, assaulting an officer. Ethan's jaw tightened, his eyes burning. Funny, the only assault I saw was from you, and it's all over the internet. He turned, gesturing to the crowd holding up their phones. Millions of people are watching this right now. Millions who just saw you brutalize an innocent man. Simmons faltered, his arrogance cracking. Turner's eyes darted nervously between the cameras, Ethan's unyielding stance and Marcus's battered face. Ethan stepped closer, his voice dropping low but carrying the weight of authority. Release him, or I will make one call that ends your career before the sun sets. For the first time, Simmons hesitated. His fingers twitched on Marcus's arm. The crowd pressed in, sensing the shift. Marcus, though bruised and bleeding, stood tall. He didn't beg, he didn't plead. He simply looked at his son, pride glimmering in his tired eyes. And in that charged moment, Simmons realized he wasn't just facing Marcus Reed. He was facing the White House itself. The tension outside the station snapped like a drawn bowstring ready to release. Every camera, every phone, every pair of eyes was fixed on the showdown between Simmons and Ethan. Simmons's jaw worked furiously, his pride clashing with the undeniable truth staring him down. He wasn't just up against a local man anymore. He was up against the federal government, the son of the man he had beaten, and the entire nation watching online. Still, his ego refused to let go. You don't scare me, Simmons spat. I don't care who you are. Around here, I'm the law. Ethan's expression didn't change, but his voice cut sharper than ever. No, Officer Simmons, you're a disgrace to the badge, and today that badge won't protect you. The crowd erupted with cheers, fueling Ethan's words with a wave of public support. Turner, standing beside Simmons, finally broke his silence. Cole, he's right. We can't win this. Let him go before it destroys us both. Simmons turned on him, rage burning in his eyes. Shut your mouth, Jake. You're either with me or against me. But Turner didn't back down this time. He looked at Marcus, then at Ethan, and finally at the cameras capturing everything. I'm not covering for you anymore, he said firmly, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. The betrayal hit Simmons like a punch. His grip on Marcus faltered. For the first time, fear flashed across his face. Ethan stepped closer, towering over Simmons now. It's over. You can release him with what little dignity you have left, or I'll personally see to it that you're escorted out of here in cuffs. Simmons's breathing grew ragged, the weight of the moment crashing down. The crowd chanted louder, Justice! 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 Finally, with shaking hands, Simmons yanked the cuffs off Marcus and shoved them into Ethan's palm. The people roared with approval, but Ethan wasn't done. He leaned in, his voice low and lethal. You just made the worst mistake of your life, and you're about to find out why. The crowd cheered as Marcus's hands were freed, but Ethan didn't bask in the moment. He slipped the cuffs into his pocket, his expression unreadable. To the cameras, he looked calm, in control. But inside, a storm raged. Simmons stood rigid, his pride stripped bare. His hand hovered near his holster, as if he still had some power left. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He had seen that twitch before, the kind that ended in tragedy. Ethan raised his hand slightly, signaling to his team. 3 agents in dark suits moved in, their presence unmistakable. They weren't local cops. They were federal muscle, White House security detail. The crowd gasped as the agents positioned themselves, surrounding Ethan and Marcus with precision. Simmons swallowed hard. What the hell is this? Ethan didn't answer him. Instead, he pulled out his phone, scrolling quickly until he reached the number he needed. He pressed call, turning slightly so the cameras could see. The line clicked. Captain Harris, came the voice. Captain, Ethan said evenly, his voice amplified by the hush of the crowd. We have a situation. Officer Cole Simmons, badge number 3471, brutally assaulted an unarmed civilian, my father, on camera. I'm requesting immediate federal intervention, suspend him and open an investigation. Effective now. The silence on the other end lasted only a second before Harris's response boomed. Consider it done. Federal agents will take custody. Simmons is finished. The crowd erupted again, their cheers shaking the air. Reporters scrambled, shouting questions, microphones thrust forward. Simmons's face drained of color. You can't, he stammered, but his words died as one of Ethan's agents stepped forward, pulling out a pair of gleaming handcuffs. Ethan finally looked him in the eye. Funny, isn't it? 5 minutes ago, you thought you owned the world. Now the world owns you. The cuffs clicked around Simmons's wrists. The same sound Marcus had endured, only now the roles had reversed. The crowd pressed forward, their phones raised high to capture every second as Simmons, once smug and untouchable, now stood in handcuffs. The cheers and shouts rang out like justice echoing through the air. Marcus stood beside his son, his face bruised but his posture unbroken. He looked at Ethan with pride shining through the pain. "You didn't have to come all this way," he said softly. Ethan placed a steady hand on his father's shoulder. "Dad, after what they did, there's nowhere else I could be." Simmons tried to wriggle free, his voice cracking. "This is wrong. I'm the officer here. You can't just—" But Ethan cut him off sharply. "You disgraced the badge when you put your hands on an innocent man. That uniform doesn't protect you anymore. It condemns you." Turner, standing nearby, lowered his eyes in shame. The weight of complicity crushed him. He finally spoke, voice trembling. "Chief Reed, I should have stopped him. I didn't. I let it happen." The crowd hushed, listening. Marcus turned his gaze toward Turner. Despite the pain in his body, his voice was steady, almost fatherly. "It's not too late to do the right thing. Speak the truth. Make it mean something." Turner nodded, his face pale. "I'll testify. I'll tell everything." The crowd erupted in applause, their chants shifting. "Justice served. Justice served." Simmons's fury boiled, but he was powerless. His wrists clinked as the agents pulled him toward the waiting SUV. For the first time in his career, he wasn't the man giving orders. He was the one being dragged away. Ethan stood tall, his arm around Marcus as the chaos unfolded around them. He had turned a moment of humiliation into one of power, not just for his father, but for everyone who had ever been silenced. But the fight wasn't over yet. Ethan knew this was bigger than one arrest. This was about making sure no other father suffered what Marcus had endured, and that battle was only just beginning. The police station's steps had never seen a crowd this large. Reporters, townsfolk, and activists lined the sidewalks, chanting as Simmons was shoved into the back of a federal SUV. His once proud posture was gone, his head hung low, the cuffs gleaming in the sunlight for the world to see. Marcus leaned heavily on Ethan's arm, his body sore but his spirit unbroken. The cameras captured every moment, the bruises on his face, the pride in his eyes, and the sun standing beside him like a shield. Linda Parker pushed through the crowd, tears in her eyes. She handed Marcus a paper cup of water. "I'm so sorry, Marcus," she whispered. "None of this should have happened." Marcus gave her a tired smile. "Don't be sorry. You spoke up when it mattered. That's more than most would do." Ethan, hearing the words, straightened. "And now no one will ever silence him again. The world saw, justice saw, and this town will never forget." A reporter shouted from the crowd, "Chief Reed, do you have any comment?" Ethan paused, glancing at his father before stepping forward. His voice was steady, carrying over the sea of microphones. "Yes, my father was attacked because of the color of his skin, but he stood strong, and because of him the truth came out. This fight isn't just about one man, it's about every person who's been told they don't belong. Today we send a message: dignity cannot be beaten down, and justice will always rise." The crowd roared with approval, their chants growing louder, uniting strangers into one voice. Marcus, standing beside his son, lifted his chin high. For the first time in years, he didn't feel small in the face of injustice. He felt seen. He looked at Ethan, pride glistening in his eyes. "You didn't just protect the president today, son," he said quietly. "You protected me." Ethan smiled, his hand steady on his father's shoulder. "Always, Dad, always." And as the convoy carried Simmons away, the diner incident that began with humiliation ended with triumph, etched forever into the town's memory and the nation's screens.